Hello, everyone. Hello. It's really good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm completely flattered, and my little girl is going to be really excited because the idea that we have somebody tuning in from Ireland is pretty terrific. So, Michael Cotter, welcome to you. Diane, so good to see you. James, thank you for being here. Gerald, Flood, Mitch, Ricky, Crystal. Oh, it's wonderful to hear from all of you guys here tonight. I wanted to come on and I wanted to talk to all of you because I think that, we're all kind of feeling the effects of what happened there in Los Angeles and in Compton. And it's not good. I mean, I look at it and I think that this is a real low point for America right now. The idea that these two young people, one was 24 years old, that officer had just graduated alongside his colleague 14 months earlier from the police academy, and the young woman, 31 years old, with a 6-year-old little boy at home, and they're just doing their jobs out there in the streets of Compton, in Los Angeles, trying to protect those citizens, and they get gunned down like that. I mean, it's so horrible. And then the idea, I mean, that's bad enough, right? And then you see the video of the protesters outside the hospital, and that's what really shakes me. Where have we gone? What are we becoming as a society when police officers are seen as somehow subhuman, that it's okay to say death to the police? I mean, this is abhorrent behavior. This is disgusting behavior. The obscenities that were coming out of their mouths. I don't know where we are right now, because that is not a good place. And I really wonder who and what is behind this, because this is not the America we know. This is not the America we love. And I'm sorry, but you know what? Those poor police officers, how the heck would you like to be out there trying to do your job, risking your life to protect these citizens when you're treated as you are, or when you're threatened with being gunned down? Fact Finder says he was born in that, or she was born in that hospital. I do believe the pictures of he. Sorry, it's very small on the screen. It's crazy. It's honestly absolutely crazy. Diorios Medina, welcome. Good to have you here. I want to talk about that Latinos for Trump, because it's very interesting, the outpouring that you're seeing in the Hispanic community, which is truly wonderful. And I think the Hispanic community really has an understanding of some of the challenges economically that could be presented with socialism, right? Whether it be the Cubans, whether it be Venezuelan Americans, and even, a lot of Mexican Americans as well, I think really know how bad things can be in a socialist environment. We've got Jeff from Maine in here, my neck of the woods, up there in New England. I actually grew up in New Hampshire, as some of you may know, and I spent a lot of time in Maine as a young person in the Kennebunk area. Anyway, it's so good to have all of you here. I did want to touch on that, though, because we really are at a place, and you know what? And I commend the president for coming out and saying something last night. Don't forget, he was campaigning in Nevada, and he came right out and he said, "This is terrible. These are animals. And if these people die, then we should be looking at the death penalty for the person that did this." It did take Joe Biden some time. I believe he came out around midday today and expressed his condolences. But this is something where you want to see somebody really quick on the draw, because this behavior must be condemned. You don't need a focus group to tell you that. I'm sorry, you don't. There's a right and a wrong sort of spectrum in the world. And this is for sure on the wrong. So he was a little slow on that, but so be it. Ilhan Omar, meanwhile, chose today of all days, the morning after this happens, to go on MSNBC and talk about the need to completely remake the police in Minneapolis. The idea that you can put social workers in instead of police officers, I'm sorry. You know what, guys, that's just not feasible. I know. You know what? I've spent a lot of time in Latin America reporting down there. I've spent a lot of time in Brazil, specifically in Rio de Janeiro. And there are these favelas, right, that are very close, actually, to some of the more luxurious parts of Brazil. I remember being in Ipanema Beach, and hearing all of these, what I now know were gunshots, firing off in the middle of the night, close to the middle of the night. And I thought, what is that? And I called down to the front desk, and the guy told me something he probably shouldn't have told an American tourist just there on business. He said, well, those are the nearby favelas. They're fighting. And I went and I talked to my crew about it the next morning, and they were local. And my audio guy said to me, this was interesting. He said, oh yeah, no, it's really a problem. My wife and I had to move actually from the apartment we were in because one of the stray bullets, they were in a nice neighborhood, but they were in between two favelas. One of the stray bullets came right in and hit my toddler son's window. And we said, okay, that's enough. So in Brazil, they have these favelas, which are effectively no-go zones, right? They police themselves. But that means the gangs and the paramilitary groups, they police them. All right. There's no official law enforcement. Is that what they're asking for when they talk about defund the police and dismantle the police in Minneapolis or some of these other places? Do they want these paramilitary groups? I think we learned with Chaz, everyone, it doesn't fly, right? If you want a successful economy, if you want opportunity for everyone, you have to have safety. You have to have law and order. So I think that the police there in LA are going to have to get to the bottom of this. They're going to have to find the person that did this, and that person is going to have to pay the consequences. Meanwhile, in light of all this, one of you was talking about the NFL, and I got to say, like, they're taking all the fun out of sports, aren't they? I mean, all the fun. You want to sit down and watch a good game, and instead you got one team hanging out in the locker room during the national anthem, only to come out when they're playing what's equated with somehow being the Black national anthem, which I don't buy into that, because I'm sorry, I don't care if you're orange or green or white or black or male or female or whatever. You know what? We're one country, and we have one really great national anthem that we should all be proud of. And I am always proud to sing, by the way. And the idea that, somehow you're going to politicize that, the fans went crazy. I get it, right? Because nobody wants to be thinking about politics when they're sitting down to watch a game and be entertained. They just want to have some fun. You guys are talking about law and order, and I agree. We need that kind of law and order. I mean, that is not a harsh thing to say. That is a very basic thing to say, right? I mean, you don't want to worry about walking outside of your house and being attacked. You don't want your police officers that are there to try and, ensure that you have stability in your community to be attacked. This is obvious, basic stuff. And the idea that we even have to have a debate about it, or the idea that anybody would be outside protesting, outside an emergency room where they are trying to save the lives of these two people, that is disappointing. And that is a shame. That is a shame. This is a dark moment in America when this kind of stuff is happening. And I think we need to get a handle on it, and we need to make sure that it's understood. We're going to make sure everybody's safe. That is the duty of government, to make sure everybody is safe. I want to get to this Latinos for Trump that we were just talking about, because I do think that is a very interesting phenomenon. Did you guys see the poll out of Florida? This was very interesting. Mike Bloomberg is putting $100 million into Florida now, because he's looking at Florida and saying, oh my goodness, Trump could really win. He could certainly take Florida, and that is a very key state to get. The latest polling data shows that Latinos really do favor Trump. And so consequently, this was a group that the Democrats really relied on pretty heavily. But in this environment, not so much. And they're looking, I think a lot of Hispanics look at it from a very simple point of view, without the lens of identity politics. And they're saying, okay, my life is better right now. The economy is a little bit better. Granted, we've all been through coronavirus, but who's got the best shot of actually turning things around? Who has the best policies? And so all of that is factoring in. So what do you know? Mike Bloomberg's tossing $100 million. That's a lot of money into the race. Basically, Mike Bloomberg seems to have made this his life's mission to try and take down Trump. But, I'll tell you, money can't buy you love, as they say, right? Mike had a lot of money when he ran, and look where it got him. And so now you look at Joe Biden. Does money actually help? I mean, on the margin, sure. But I think a lot of Americans, we see through that, don't we? Jackie Hull, good to have you here. Robert, good to have you here. Diorias, yes, you like the president. And Jeff from Maine piping in, exactly. You know what? Bloomberg should spend his money on corona research. You're right, TC. Or how about helping out New York City? What a mess that place is. I wrote an op-ed for my website, TrishIntel.com. If you have not seen it, please go and check it out. I'm so proud of it. We just came out with it in the last couple of weeks. I wrote this op-ed today the situation, shall we say, in New York, you get a socialist there, right? Bill de Blasio, card-carrying member of the Socialist Party. That is his platform. He actually was on a radio show recently on WNYC, and he said, I quote, "Please help me redistribute wealth. Help me tax the wealthy." In other words, you can only get so far in Bill de Blasio's world, and then he's going to take it all from you and redistribute it. And somehow that's sanctioned or supposed to be sanctioned. So this is what he wants to do. Well, what happens? You got Cuomo out there now saying, okay, we got an $8 billion hole we got to fill. Right? We've got this, budget that's out of control because, interestingly enough, all these blue states, primarily blue, that are high tax, they're really feeling it because what did Donald Trump do? He said, guess what, guys? You can no longer deduct your state and federal income tax, your state and local tax from your federal filing. So what does that mean? It means that, people are paying more tax and the states are going to have to be accountable. And if you're not accountable, then, people, they may just move. And in light of coronavirus and the fact that nobody's actually working in New York City right now, what has happened? Everybody's moved. And so you have all kinds of crime now. That's escalated like you wouldn't believe. You've got garbage in the streets, people's basic facilities and needs are not being met. And yet de Blasio says, let's just tax them more. And now Cuomo is saying, well, we may not have a choice. We may actually have to do this. And so they're just going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that hole. And that is a scenario, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't want, right, for our country. That's fine for New York City. They got problems. They can deal with it. They'll figure it out, hopefully. But we can't handle that as a country. If they do that to us, we will have nothing left. In the meantime, you get the defund the police thing going on, or dismantle the police, or whatever you want to call it. Replace all the police officers with social workers, because that's really going to go well, right? Anyway, Asians for Trump as well. Somebody's writing, so Latinos for Trump, Asians for Trump. I will say one of the interesting things about him is that, as much as the parties try to play the identity politics, I think in today's day and age, if you can transcend above that, right? If you can really get to what I think is critical, because I do believe the best part about America is that we historically anyway have always been a meritocracy. It's not like we look and we say, okay, well, we need one man, one woman, one Black, one white, one Asian, one Hispanic. We've usually just said, okay, like whoever can do it, do it. And, you want to make sure that you're providing the right opportunities and the right foundation so that kids have the right education so that they can compete, right? But you don't want to be effectively handing out handouts to anyone, because that's really not in keeping with the culture that we have, that we've really created over the last couple of 100 years. And so he's kind of gone where no one's been willing to go when it comes to some of those issues. And he's just full steam ahead. And really, I think, pushing for this better meritocracy. I look at education right now. I don't know how many of you guys have kids and you're dealing with the whole school thing, but so many schools are shut down. You look at California right now. I mean, Compton, right? Or look at the inner city of Chicago or the inner city of Washington, D.C. These communities that the left keeps telling us they want to help so much, they're robbing of any opportunity. They're not giving these kids the basics, which is school. Right? Because you've got powerful unions that say, we don't want to do it. And what do you know? Private schools, they figure it out because they have to, right? And you know what? People that can afford to, they'll figure it out too. Whether it means hiring an educator that serves a particular community or neighborhood, they're figuring it out. It's the poor kids in these inner cities that are going to be left without. And that once again comes back to the left. And I'm sick of it. You know what? I'm really sick of them pretending like somehow it's somebody else's fault when they're the ones that have been governing these communities. The answer is be smarter, be more creative, come up with better policies so that everybody has a shot at the American dream. Please. Good to have you all here. I hope if you have not, please go and check out my podcast. You got to download Trish Intel. I'm filing it every day, and I really want you to listen in, and I really want you to come back to me and tell me what you're thinking. You can communicate with me at trishintel.com anytime, 24/7. The site is always going, and we have lots and lots of news stories there that you should be reading, and hopefully you can get some of your non-biased, real news there at Trish trishintel.com. So do check it out. There's a lot of really good stuff there today. We, of course, got into this whole disaster in Los Angeles, and really my heart breaks. It really does, for those families and for those poor police officers that have to deal with that. And my heart breaks for every police officer tonight in New York, and for every family member of a police officer. Can you imagine? I mean, if I had to worry about my husband going out and getting shot in the street while just trying to do his job, think about the little kids that see this on the news and then worry about their mommies or their daddies going out just trying to do what they can to protect a community, and they might get shot. This is not right. Hello, Dave in Canada. Very good to see you up in Canada. I like Canada a lot. Chris, good to have you here. Your point about, they had months to prepare. Exactly. They had months to prepare for this, Chris. And what did they do? Nothing, because I'm sorry, but, I hate to break it to you. Sometimes the unions get a little too powerful for their own good. Okay. And, maybe there was a time and place in history for some of those unions. But right now, when it comes to education, what you're seeing is that the kids are the ones that are getting, basically thrown to the wind. That's one way to put it. Hello in Texas. I love Texas. It's good to see you. It's really good to see all of you here tonight. I love this. One of the greatest things about all of this has been the outpouring from all of you. I've just been amazed by it, and I've been so heartened by it. And you know what? We have a voice. We have a voice here together. And that's why I started the podcast. That's why I started the website. That's why I'm here on YouTube now. This is like my third time doing it. I'm getting the hang of it. It's amazing how tech savvy you can become in like no time at all. By the way, speaking of tech savvy, what did you guys think about the 27 phones being just swiped clean before they got turned into the DOJ from Mueller's office? How did you like that? I mean, how does that just happen that phones just get accidentally swiped clean? It doesn't. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not accidental, because I've had a phone for a long time. I've never done that to my phone. Have you done that to your phone by accident? No, I think something else was going on. And look, I wasn't born yesterday, right? Neither were you. I suspect that, the real word for that is tampering, or term I should say, is tampering with evidence. Because I think we need to know what the heck happened and why it happened. Bleachbit, Dan writes, yeah, it's kind of, it's like that. I mean, they did what they could to make sure that there was no evidence. And so the American public is still left saying, how the heck is it that a president, then candidate for president, was having his campaign spied upon? How did that all come to be? And we don't have enough knowledge about that. Hello in Connecticut, Paul Rogers. Robert, sounds like a play out of Hillary Clinton's playbook. Yeah. I mean, she taught them well, I guess, right? I mean, it's not right. And they need to get to the bottom of that one right now, because we still have answers. And here we are coming up on the election, and we still don't really know what happened last time around. But I'll tell you one thing. Right now. The left is playing a very, very, very dangerous game, and they should be ashamed of what they're doing. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if there's one thing that China and Russia want, they want us to be at odds with each other. They want to undermine the sanctity of our elections. They want us to no longer trust the system that we have always trusted. And guess what? The left is doing it right there for them, and the mainstream media is along for the ride. I mean, who needs bots when you've got CNN or MSNBC or Hillary Clinton, right? Hillary Clinton actually saying that Joe Biden should not concede no matter what. I was blown away by that. When that happened, I thought, here's a former presidential candidate actually saying that we should just not trust the results of the election. By the way, Joe Biden, who's running for election, just said a couple of weeks ago to Trevor Noah that the president would steal the election. What are they actually suggesting? I mean, they're not even suggesting it. They're saying he's going to steal the election. So if they don't get their way, they're going to accuse him and the other side of fraud. I mean, Banana Republic, here we come. Right? How can they do that? How is that being tolerated? It shouldn't be, not for 2 seconds. Let me tell you, if it was the other way around, and if President Trump were saying that kind of stuff about them, they'd be going crazy, because you know what? You don't threaten the sanctity of the system. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. And so again, I look at it and say, hey, if I'm China, if I'm Russia, I'm like, good. You know what? It doesn't even in their view matter as much who wins, although I think for economic reasons, maybe China would like to see Biden in there because they think they could get ahead more so economically with a Biden. But nonetheless, I mean, I think it's not even so much who wins, it's can we get America to just really no longer trust its system and get so bogged down in all of that that they don't have time to do anything else. Victoria, it's very good to see you. Yes, it's good to be back. John G, welcome. James, good to have you here. President Trump will win and there will be riots. There could be. There could be. And there could be because did you guys see the piece in the Washington Post the other day? Well, there's all kinds of interesting pieces in the Washington Post. Anyway, this one was by a Georgetown professor. And the Georgetown professor was saying that if Joe Biden did not win in a landslide, then there would be riots in the streets. There would be war, I think was the expression, in the streets. And once again, kind of a strange thing to say, but it strikes me that they are trying to grease the wheels to prepare America for the fact that Donald Trump will win, but they don't want you to trust the results of that win. I mean, that's kind of messed up. That's kind of messed up. Anyway, Jeff from Maine saying the Democrats are trying to steal the election with voter fraud with mail-in ballots. And if they succeed, there will be a civil war. Could be. I mean, look, I don't like the mail-in ballot thing, and I'll get into that in a second, but let me just ask this. Why on earth can't we, the biggest economy in the world, figure out a way to make sure that everybody can go and vote outside, right? Have tents outside, get some giant Lysol sprayers and spray down the booths and do whatever you need to do. We can have many, many more poll workers. I mean, Mike Bloomberg has $100 million to spare, right? We can have a lot of poll workers and we can make sure that everybody, is not waiting in line all day, but we can make the system efficient and we can make it safe. And we know that, the traditional mailing system of going and filing your vote in the booth, that works. And then we don't have to worry about, gosh, what was the report? I mean, there are millions and millions of ballots that have gone missing over the last 3 or 4 presidential elections that were mailed in. That's a problem. And then there's more than 235,000 ballots that were deemed undeliverable or unregisterable in a recent election, I believe out in Nevada. So you have a combination of these factors going on where you can't really trust the whole system. Not to mention, if you saw the piece in the New York Post, they did an interview with somebody who was a former Democratic op who basically is just thrown in the towel because he's so disgusted with the whole system right now. But he mentioned that he had helped rig elections in New York, in Pennsylvania, and in New Jersey. And how did he do this? By actually going door to door, collecting people's ballots, taking them home, steaming them, inserting the ballot that they wanted into the envelope, and then mailing it in. He also said that there were postal workers sometimes basically on the take here, and that if they didn't like a particular candidate and they were in a neighborhood that was very Republican with a lot of Trump signs, then they could just take all those ballots and toss them because nobody ever knows, right? So I don't think that's a very good feeling. I think that we need to be really, really, really vigilant. Wayne is making the point that if Biden wins, the CCP wins. And I think that is an excellent point because unfortunately, we got to be thinking about China in terms of the long term, right? I mean, they are growing. And while there's nothing wrong with growth, you're talking about a country that does not operate like we do. Okay, that is a communist system. There is no freedom there. You think about what they've done to the Muslim population, really, among many, many other things. And it's quite tragic. So you have no freedom in China. And ultimately, if they become the dominant economic power in the world, then we run the risk they're also the dominant military power. And that is just not an acceptable outcome ever. And there are too many people on the left that have become so enthralled with sort of this globalist financial, dream that they're not thinking about what really matters. And that is the success of the American economy and the American middle class. Because if we do not have a thriving middle class, we don't have much of a country. That is the reality. And yet increasingly over the last 25 years, we have seen, frankly, both parties really court sort of the elites, right? And in the global elites, everybody's about globalism because, then the global elites make more and more money. But who suffers? The middle class. The middle class suffers. I talk about it like this, an hourglass economy, a lot on top, right? And they do fine, a lot on the bottom, but it's the middle class, those people in the middle. You're just trying to do things the right way. You're just trying to be honest and earn an honest living and put your kids through school. And that is the group of people that gets most hurt in this kind of environment where there's only a care for sort of what deal you can do next on an international level with, say, China. Poppy, would love to hear your take on the scandemic. Look, for the record, I never said that the coronavirus was not in any way real. It is. What I have said is not real is the way they have politicized this entire thing. It has been so heavily politicized. So instead of doing the right thing, which would have been to make sure that we protected our elderly, right? Think about New York. Governor Cuomo in April was sending people with COVID-19 right into nursing homes to recover. Not smart. Basically, effectively, sending people to their death sentence there in those nursing homes because they don't have the ability, to fight off coronavirus. And so instead of doing the smart thing, right, which would have been to have figured out how do we keep going, because I'm sorry, you need a strong economy to fight it. You do. And you can't just say we're going to shut everything down because for political reasons, it's expedient. And then we can say, oh, well, now you have to mail in votes, or now you have to, deal with the fact that you no longer have a job. And isn't that terrible? And let's blame Trump for a bad economy. I'm disgusted by the politicization of all of this. It doesn't need to be politicized, but that is exactly what they do. And that is not right. That will never be right. And so instead of being smart about this, what did we do? Everybody was going crazy, and it really irritated me because I was watching the market suffer. And I knew people on the left that were kind of like, great, the market's down. Because there's this attitude that you can sacrifice the economy, you can sacrifice American jobs, and they just don't care enough, frankly, about the state of America in the here and now, because they're too focused on trying to find anything that they can use against this president to win the election. And that is what I had and have a problem with. It will never be right. Shutting down was the dumbest reaction ever, Kid Curry says. Yeah, again, there are things that you can do and there are things that you should do, but you don't just shut down. I get it. If you have an underlying condition, if you're in that age category, if you suffer from diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease, then you're going to have a whole different set of risks, and government should be there however it can to help people with that set of risks, but everybody else has to keep on going. One very interesting article I read recently was an interview with the Swedish health minister, who said that they actually look at health in a very more holistic way, right? It's not just whether or not you get coronavirus, but what is the downside for an economy and for a community if you cannot have life as you know it? And there is serious downside. You think about the mental health issues that our country has struggled with as a result of all of this. You think about the stress, right, that people have been put through, not being able to go and, earn a living and take care of their family. You think about the people that need to go in for routine treatments. I lost someone close to me that should have gone in for a routine treatment and didn't, right, because of coronavirus. It was not well thought out. And to me, you need to listen to everyone. You don't just listen to Fauci. Interestingly, by the way, this is a good story on the website. Check it out, trishintel.com. Fauci's now basically saying, don't listen to the president, just read the data. Because the president is trying to be optimistic and saying, look, we're turning the corner on this thing. And God forbid anybody be optimistic. No, you can't be optimistic. Look, Fauci's coming at it from a totally different angle. He has one sort of, set of data he's looking at, and that's all that matters to him. But I think as a government, we need to look at this from many different levels. It's more nuanced than the Faucis of the world will let on, right? So again, the mental health issue, the ability of people to take care of themselves, the ability of our economy to continue thriving. We have now just been put through the ringer, right? And was it necessary? I don't think so. I think we could have been a whole lot smarter about all of this and protected more people while still making sure that everybody could still engage in their normal lives as much as possible. Anyway, somebody said there's a huge spider right behind me. I hope not. I definitely hope not, but that's a good, yeah, it sounds like something like my little boy would do. Fauci's a liar. Anyway, it's really good to see all you guys tonight. The Constitution has a blind spot, Dan says, with regard to medical insurrections. Yeah, I think that's, probably true. That's the one thing you could certainly get them on, because a pandemic is a pretty terrifying thing. And I hope everybody's staying safe. And I hope you're all taking care of your families and taking care of your loved ones and doing all that you can to make sure everybody's okay in this challenging time. But I think what's most important is that we get back to normal as soon as we can. I don't like the idea of schools like they are in DC shutting down until the Friday after the election. Don't know what's so magical about that day. Even in LA, there was a recent recording that was somehow gotten by a local radio station where allegedly the superintendent or one of the heads of school was saying they would open after the election. I mean, no, we can't just sit around and wait for the election. We have to go on with our lives. And that is critical to us as people and to us as a country. So again, please make sure you tune in to trishintel.com. Download the podcast. If you haven't, subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends, Trish is back. We got a very important time ahead of us. So it's really important to get out the message and to get out the truth, because I'll tell you, we need to do everything we can right now to protect our freedoms, to protect our freedom of speech, to protect our freedom to protect ourselves, and to protect our freedom to prosper. We all deserve a shot at the American dream, so don't let them take it from you. So good to see you all tonight. I'm going to turn off now because I've got some kids to get to bed for. They're actually going to school tomorrow. Have a terrific night. I'll see you all soon. Thanks.